When a person is born amidst violence and fear and is seen by others as weak and incapable of anything great, hope for the future seems an empty illusion. But there are individuals who turn pain into fuel for the most daring accomplishments. One of them is David Goggins. His journey began with humiliation and fear and led to worldwide recognition and inspiration for millions. This story is filled with drama and determination to prove to everyone, and first of all to himself, that there are no boundaries until you decide to set them. Watch the video to the end. This story will impress you. On our channel, we talk about unique people who have done incredible things, so subscribe to learn new motivational stories. David was born in 1975 into a family where there was tension and violence. His father often demonstrated brute force, and any day could end with a beating or humiliation. From an early age, David realized home was not a safe place for him. He grew up in constant fear, not knowing what it was like to be supported and cared for by an adult. The situation was no better at school. He was overweight, ridiculed by his classmates, and saw no prospects in front of him. No one believed that from this quiet and insecure boy could grow someone significant. David himself also increasingly closed in himself, perceiving his shortcomings as insurmountable obstacles. He was very afraid to show initiative because he was used to waiting for aggression or humiliation in response. When he became a teenager, he was surrounded by an oppressive atmosphere, constant bullying, coldness in the family, and the feeling that no one wanted him. During this period, David stopped believing that life could get better. Many of his peers set goals for themselves to go to college, build a career, find an interesting vocation, but he felt deep down that his potential was zero. It is unclear at what exact moment in him woke up determination, but one day, David submitted documents to join the U.S. Air Force. This decision surprised everyone who knew him intimately. Most thought he was too insecure and physically unfit. He had his doubts, but it seemed to him that it was still worth trying to get out of the vicious circle in which he lived. Serving in the Air Force proved to be an ordeal. He could hardly withstand the physical exertion, and the harsh discipline went against his habit of complete chaos in life. But every time David felt he was failing, a faint light inside him said, "If I stop now, I'll never get out of the abyss." That inner voice wouldn't let him give up. Slowly but surely, he began to overcome his inner barriers. Even though he wasn't the best in his squad, he was learning to work as a team and take responsibility for his actions. Each new day became an opportunity for him to prove to himself that he was capable of more. When his Air Force contract came to an end, David was no longer the battered teenager who had once been afraid to even talk to a stranger. But he felt that self-esteem wasn't enough. He wanted something bigger. David decided to join the most difficult and prestigious unit, the Navy SEALs. For those who are even remotely familiar with this selection, it is clear. Ahead were physical and psychological stresses comparable to the most real hell. Hundreds of people dropped out at the first stages because they could not withstand the pressure and endless exhaustion. The path turned out to be long and painful. First, he didn't pass the medical examination. Doctors found he had health problems. Being overweight was still a serious obstacle. But instead of giving up, Goggins began intensified training. He ran from morning till night, tortured himself in the gym, and changed his diet. From chocolates and high-calorie food, which used to be habitual for him, he gave up in favor of a strict diet and protein products. Psychologically, it was almost as hard as physically, because he was used to eating stress. But David knew that going backwards would mean returning to the gray, joyless existence he'd been running from all his life. When he finally got into the Navy SEAL program, he had to endure Hell Week, sleepless nights, and overloads that break even strong people. There were many moments when it seemed like his body and mind could no longer function. But he forced himself to hold out for one more hour, one more set of exercises, one more prohibitive task. Time and time again, he proved to himself that he could endure more than he had ever imagined. Eventually, he became one of those who successfully completed the training, gaining invaluable experience and officially becoming a Navy SEAL. It would seem that a career in an elite unit is already a huge success that one can only dream of. But for David, it was just a phase. He felt that he wanted to further test his own endurance. So he entered the world of ultramarathons, ultra-long distances that most people wouldn't risk running even once in a lifetime. When David was first confronted with the idea of running 100 miles, about 160 kilometers, he initially doubted whether he could do it. He remembered a childhood filled with complexes and fears. But the desire to move forward and overcome himself proved stronger. He took part in an ultramarathon and found that despite the pain in his legs, fatigue, and a strong desire to stop, his will was able to lead his body to the finish line. This first experience opened a new page of life for him. He began to participate in the most difficult competitions. Spectators and other competitors marveled to see this tenacious man take to the course time after time, unafraid to face the pain and risks. The Badwater 135, considered one of the toughest ultramarathons in the world, was run under the scorching Death Valley sun. Nevertheless, David accepted the challenge and competed there repeatedly, honing his ability to overcome fatigue and lack of resources. In addition to ultramarathons, Goggins turned his attention to another challenge, the world record for pull-ups in 24 hours. Many people find it difficult to do even a dozen pull-ups in a row, but here we were, talking about thousands. The first time he tried to set the record live, he got blisters. The skin on his palms came off, and his muscles literally burned with pain. He couldn't finish. The second time around, he was sure he had prepared better, but the injuries came back, and he couldn't progress either. However, David was not used to seeing defeats as the end of the story. After each failure, he made an even more detailed training plan, looking for new ways to strengthen his hands and shoulder joints. His desire to reach his goal seemed almost insane, but in the end, having passed through numerous obstacles, he still broke the world record for pull-ups. This victory finally cemented his reputation as a man who knows no limits and is willing to endure for results like no one else. Goggins' accomplishments didn't end there. He decided to enroll in the Army Ranger School, another elite military unit, where there is a strict discipline and from the candidates are required to maximize dedication. The school provides rigorous training and does not forgive mistakes. David realized that once again he would have to go through humiliation, pain, and exhausting trials, but he was determined not to stop. Despite all the difficulties, he graduated with honors, which shocked many who knew about his past. Yesterday, in the minds of those around him, he was a boy who struggled to keep up, but today he was overcoming some of the toughest training in the world. This experience reinforced his conviction. The limits we set for ourselves often exist only in our heads. If you are willing to challenge your own fears and endure great discomfort, you can achieve what seems impossible. David's story could not go unnoticed. When he began to speak publicly about his journey, people caught his every word with rapt attention. They saw before them a man who had gone through the horrors of an abusive childhood, perpetual insecurity and physical limitations, but turned all of this into a foundation for tremendous achievements. His speeches gather full auditoriums, and the book in which he shared his personal experiences became a real bestseller. People of different ages and professions find in his words inspiration to overcome their own fears and never give up. Goggins talks about the importance of working on yourself, daily small victories, which together give a colossal result. He does not promise an easy path. On the contrary, he speaks honestly about the pain that you have, to learn to live with if you want to achieve something extraordinary. Today, David continues to show that development is a never-ending process. He doesn't rest on his laurels and sets new goals for himself, both in sports And in his personal life, he emphasizes that our fight against our own laziness, fears, and painful feelings will never be complete, because every day brings new challenges. His journey is a shining example of how even in the most unfavorable circumstances, you can grow into a person who can roll mountains. Once upon a time, David could not have imagined that the whole world would be listening to him. It seemed to him that he had neither the talent nor the character to climb out of the abyss, but willpower and a desire to prove to himself that he was not doomed to failure changed everything. The story of David Goggins is not about fame and not about prestigious awards. It is about developing an inner core and the desire to surpass himself. Each new chapter in his biography makes us realize that impossible is just a word, and the real strength lies in the willingness to constantly go beyond the usual limits. If you feel that you are at a dead end or doubt your own abilities, think about David's example. Beginning with humiliation and eternal fears, he managed to achieve absolute discipline and the respect of the whole world. And although his journey is far from over, the main lesson he carries is, stop thinking you can't. Start doing to prove that you can. It's a story that stirs the heart and makes us rethink our own limitations. It's not about a comic book superhero, but about a real person who one day realized that there is much more potential than meets the eye. Perhaps the same thought can change your life. What do you think of this man? Share in the comments. Tell us your opinion. It will be interesting. And now I highly recommend you to watch another video on my channel where I talk about Nick Vujicic, a man born without arms and legs who became a source of motivation for millions of people around the world. It's an amazing story that will leave a lasting impression. The link to the video just popped up on your screen. Be sure to check it out. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. And I'll see you on the Nick Vujicic video.